Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode from Ampro Engineering. This episode here is going to focus on a project that has been a long time coming, and I'm very happy to say that it's just about done. What you are looking at here is a Tamiya CC01 chassis, and the body on it is a Fiat Panda, in this case here the 4x4 version called the Sicily by Plastic Dreams out of Italy. Before we dive into the specifics on the car body and the chassis and all the things I've done to it, I did want to talk a little bit about the Panda. Based on the YouTube data that I have access to, it's not surprising that the vast majority of my followers are from the United States, so it's very likely that you've not ever heard of the Fiat Panda. This car was designed by my second favorite automotive designer of all time, Giorgetto Giugiaro. Giugiaro has had such a profound impact on the automotive industry that in 1999 he was named Car Designer of the Century. So although you may have never seen a Panda in the flesh, there are some other cars that he was responsible, such as the De Tomaso Mangusta, the Maserati Merak, which is absolutely unbelievably beautiful, the Alfa Romeo Giulia Sprint GT, the Volkswagen Golf, or if you're familiar with it in the United States, the Volkswagen Rabbit, the first generation of the car. He was also behind the DeLorean, the original Lotus Esprit, and several other Fiats, including some of my favorite, like the Fiat 850 Spider, the Fiat Panda that we have here, the Fiat Uno, the Fiat Punto. Now this is the first generation Panda, but I believe that the Sicily model was based on the second facelift, which did some cosmetic changes and I think a lot of interior and mechanical changes. We have here in the front, to the keen-eyed observer, is one of the first things that's incorrect about the car is the grille. The Sicily had an all-plastic grille with 5 horizontal bars to denote the Fiat logo, whereas this one here has the earlier style grille, and I always like this asymmetry that the car had. I thought it was incredibly beautiful. In fact, it reminds me a lot of what the Bertone styling house usually does. This panel here, since it's not correct to the car, I did 3D print, so I designed this whole panel. The emblem has been 3D printed as well, as has the air intake on the hood. Now this is not for the motor. This air intake is for the heater and cabin air. So this is not any kind of intercooler or anything like that. No, it's just to take air into the cabin. There are other external design cues that I have done myself as well. The side view mirrors are also 3D printed, and I was concerned about them breaking, of course. So they're on a little hinge. So if you hit something, the mirror will flex inward. And there's a bit of resistance here to prevent it from just flopping around. So it does go both directions, and it has a little panel on the inside which has been painted chrome. So that's kind of cool. On the roof, and I think I have it screwed down. Yeah, this little basket is 3D printed, as are these roof rails which sit on the roof and follow the roof's curvature, so that you still got the little runners when the panel is not, or when the basket is not on. There are 4 little mounts here for lights. I haven't gotten those in yet from eBay, so we're waiting for that. Flipping this around, there's some little deformation here, and that is my fault. I painted these and then left them in a really, really hot area on a day that I thought wasn't going to be hot, and this whole thing warped inward on the bumper. So this is the result of me trying to flatten it. My plan is to just replace the bumpers with something that's 3D printed, but for the time being this is fine. We've also got the 3D printed emblem at the rear, as well as the Panda 4x4 emblem. These 2 little badges down here are Steyr Puch. That was the collaboration which gave us the Panda 4-wheel drive. This was not an in-house Fiat build. We have the rear wiper, which is also printed, and yet another 3D printed wiper here at the front. What I also wanted to point out too is all the black trim around the windows. That is not a decal. That is me meticulously primering and then painting. I'm still working on the door panel lines here, but I'm not happy with the marker I was using, so I've ordered a replacement. The wheels are also 3D printed, and much like the front grille in the car, are incorrect. These are the earlier style steel wheels, and usually you would find them in silver, but again, I wanted these in white. I had a certain look that I was going for, and that's what I've got here. So there are some very glaring inconsistencies between having a 4x4 Panda and some of the things that I've done to this one here, but it's a toy, so whatever. Before I pull the body off, I did want to show off something kind of cool. Let's turn the remote on. Let me shut the overhead lights off. As usual, you can see that the car does have a light kit that I installed. Let's turn the wheels. There's a side marker there. And the light bleed, or lack thereof I should say, was simply the result of me putting several layers of silver in between the different color coats. So I've got the blue coat, and then behind it was painted silver. Painted the orange right there, then painted it silver, so that there wasn't any way that the light would actually bleed through. Same thing at the rear. We've got our red taillights, we've got our turn signals. These are doing a reasonable job of keeping the orange out of the red and all that, and I did that by just gluing a little separator in the supplied taillight housing. Let me lift the car up if I can and go into reverse. The brake lights work nicely. There we go. And the signal. And before we again pull the body off, let's zoom in here, and we can see that as usual we have a fully illuminated instrument cluster. We'll get a better viewing of this when the body is off. To remove the body, I had to actually make some body mounts because although this body was designed for use on the CC01, it's not an official Tamiya product, so you're gonna have to try and make it work. And what I have done, you can see underneath here, we have this little panel at the rear and one here at the front. Well, you can see that. And you put little body pins through that and through that from the bottom, same as here. And then you can just lift the body straight up. And we probably have cables under here. Now the interior is a little bit hard to get out. You can see that the addition of all the wiring has of course impeded the interior removal, but I will do this for you anyway. The interior is held in by Velcro. You can see it here on the sides a little bit. I felt that that was the least intrusive way to hold the interior in, other than making a series of modified body mounts in the chassis. I at that point just wanted to get this thing done, so we'll just unhook these lines here, these wires there, and peel back the tape, and then we'll get the interior out. Before I put the body down, I did want to show the visor setup and the rear view mirror assembly that I've got installed here. We have the passenger side mirror that is down and the driver side mirror that is up still, as well as that little rear view mirror facing toward the driver with the little adjustment lever right there. And here we have the interior. Almost all of the interior is Lexan except for the dash, which is one of my 3D printed products. And it was an interesting job because it definitely is not designed to fit this interior. I copied the original one as closely as I could, but there were some fitment issues. You see I had to trim down the side panel of the interior to get it to fit, mainly because the stock one was flexible and this one is simply not. This is all printed in a using a polyjet printer. So the interior I painted using normal Lexan paint, and then I shot a matte coat over the entire interior. This was after I put in the water slide decals for the seat fabric. I found this pattern on the internet and it was like a brown, it was some sort of weird brownish shade of fabric, so I just used Photoshop and adjusted it until I got this very gaudy blue and orange and white and purple interior, which is exactly what I was going for. I was going for as 90s as humanly possible, and I think I've accomplished that. Some of the additions that I did to the car was installing the window winders on the door panels, the armrest, the gear shift knob for clearly a 5-speed, the parking brake, and the entire dash panel. Let's have a look at that in a little more detail. All the lighting is being powered by a power converter, and these are available on eBay for very, very little money. I want to say between $4 and $5, if not less. It takes a variety of input power here. I think this one here goes as low as 4 volts and as high as 48 volts. And using one of these little adjustment pots here, I can't recall which one it is, as well as a voltmeter to figure out what the voltage is, you can actually step the power down. And in this case here, I have it down to 3.3 volts, which is the optimal operating voltage for the white LEDs. And I did use a soft white LED. I'm trying to get away from those bluish LEDs. I don't think they look very good. The dash operates on 4 5mm LEDs, so let's go ahead and plug this in. Do my best here to show this off. The beauty of this car's scale, and I'll get the scale a little bit later on, was that it did allow for a larger dash, which means I could actually create numbers. So the dash does have real numbers for its instrumentation versus the suggestion of numbers like a square to denote an 8, a variety of misshapen rectangular features to give the illusion of numbers. Almost all of the numbers here, like the temperature and the speedometer, do have actual numbers. This car's kind of cool because it has a little vehicle indicator here to tell you about fuel level, any kind of lights, light bulbs being burned out, thermal issues, oil pressure, all that good stuff. It's all there. The radio you can see is tuned to 93.1, which is my favorite radio station down in LA when I was living over there. You have the little clock as well as all of the little switches up here. You have the vent controls from hot to cool up here. It's showing is green, that's actually blue. On top of the dash, this is a part that's unique to the Panda Sicily, which is an inclinometer. So it is, you can tell it is illuminated. And it has two images of the car from the side and one from the rear. If you have a Jeep product, then most likely you've got an inclinometer on your dash with a picture of a Jeep. Well, this is a Panda, so it has a picture of a Panda. In order to get light up here, I didn't want to have an LED in the back, so it uses light piping with the translucent 3D printed plastic to pipe the light directly into it, so you can't see that at night. It will actually illuminate, which is kind of cool. And I'm sure there's some audiophiles out there that are curious what the radio is, what model it is. And I have to say that I simply took inspiration from 1980s and 90s Alpine radios. They used to have this really fantastic look. They all lit up green, and they had these really big buttons that were all illuminated, and I thought they always looked really, really neat. So that is where I got that whole idea. You can see all the different features that light up on that radio. There is a lens on the instrument cluster. I don't know whether you can see that. The steering wheel is also 3D printed. It did come with the exact same wheel. Another area where this is incorrect is the steering wheel. This should say Panda Sicily, I think, or it'll have an image of the Steyr-Puch badge. In this case here, it simply says Fiat, and you can see that I added the wipers and turn signals and high beam column mounts, which is all on the steering column. Technically, this car should have speakers installed in these areas here and here, right in there. I haven't done it because, well, I don't know why. Maybe we'll do that later on. This is a little speaker that I made. There's a front grille that comes off. I don't know how well you can see the inside. You can kind of see it there. It actually does have an inner speaker. It's fake, of course, but it's a separate piece that you can paint. Oh, there it is. You can see it there. Just to give it some depth, it's a little more visible with the back 6x9, like so. So those will be attached. The rear ones will go on the rear package tray, and the front ones, like on the real car, will just drop straight in there and held in with a little tab of modeling glue. Anyway, this is where we're at right now. I still like to install some drivers, but I haven't quite found a set that would fit. I'd love to have all four in here. I used a stone texture spray paint to achieve this carpet-like finish. It only comes in a few colors, and I used a brownish color. After a few coats of this exact same blue that I used on the body, just a couple light coats anyway. You don't want to go too crazy because then you might drown out the texture. It did give it that contrast between this heavily textured surface finish and the matte surface finish that was achieved with the matte clear coat. When the seat bucket is attached to the body, you can see roughly how it fits in the car. With the body back on, we are where we started at the beginning of the episode. There are some minor things I still need to tune in, like I mentioned earlier, some of the body panel lines. I think that the back is sitting a little bit higher than it should be, and that's because the rear springs are really, really stiff. I've got to get some softer ones. The 80-turn motor's coming in, and I'm going to replace the front and rear bumpers with completely 3D printed units. But as of now, the car is at a good spot. So I think the next time you see it, it will be running on some trails, because this is going to be a fantastic trail, I guess, car, because it's not a truck. It'll be a nice trail car. That is all for now. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned to watch this little guy on the trails, and I have tons more stuff to cover on some upcoming episodes from Pro Engineering.